I am 25 male. I live in Utah, and I'm curious if any of you have seen anything like this before. I'm pretty sure I saw a Wendigo or a Skinwalker. I know it sounds strange or crazy. I don't really believe in those things, and I'm regularly skeptical when it comes to the paranormal. This happened to me when I was 17 and in high school and living with my parents. My house at the time was in a very small town. The backyard faced open, empty fields and mountains for miles before you reached another civilization at all. My best friend lived next door and shared this field as our backyard in a way. I have to explain that his house was built on a different street that ended in the field, with a small cul-de-sac. I think there was supposed to be more houses built down this street to expand the town, but they clearly never got around to it. So his driveway was basically in this cul-de-sac, even though no other houses were built there. This matters later in the story. I used to stay the night at my friend's house a lot in high school because I didn't have the best relationship with my parents. Every once in a while, we would wake up to hear dragging and a weird gargling sound from the back porch. His room was a basement room with the window facing the back porch. It would happen maybe a couple times a month, but whenever we would gather the courage to check, nothing would be back there. This happened for years. One night haunts my friend and I to this day. My friend was getting ready to move, and we would stay up all night playing video games and watching movies. We decided to go on a music drive just to vibe. So, we hopped in his truck with high beams and swung out of the driveway, turning them on towards the field to use the roundabout. The light illuminated this thing. It looked like a person, but it wasn't. It was naked on all fours, abnormally large, particularly its limbs, that seemed to fold under itself in an unnatural way. Its pale skin clung to it like it had been stretched onto it. But the part that still sends shivers down my spine is its face. Its jaw hung open to this gaping black maw like a snake unhinging its jaw to eat. Its black eyes glistened in the light as it looked at us. But just as it turned to see us, it quickly scurried backwards, almost like it was on rewind, into the brush of the field. My friend and I were pale as ghosts. We both looked at each other like, "Did you see that too?" We were shaken. Let's just say we tried to have a good rest of the night, but we couldn't believe what we saw. We ended up just sitting there in his basement with guns ready and waiting to hear the gargling and dragging again. But we never did. Sorry that it's not very climactic, but it's the truth. I don't live in that town anymore. There are times when I visit there, though. That empty field still feels like it's watching and waiting. Even though I can't see it, I can still feel like it's out there. I live in a suburban townhouse neighborhood in Pennsylvania with woods surrounding it. I hear screeches a lot during the summer and fall due to foxes, so it's not uncommon for me to hear them. But what's weird about this encounter is it's in the middle of winter and foxes usually aren't out. I live in the basement of my house with a back door and a light for the outside. Tonight, on January 8th, just past midnight, I heard a baby scream. Like I said, it's not uncommon due to the foxes, but this sounded like an actual baby. So, I unlock my back door and turn on the light. I heard another screech, but this one was different. It sounded deeper. So, like I usually do, I whistled. It responded with another screech. I'm still assuming it's a fox at this point, but I'm always interested to see if it could be something else. I whistled again, but it didn't make a screech. Instead, I heard a whistle back. Now I'm a little freaked out at this point. I whistled again, and it whistled back. After a couple more whistles and screeches, I don't hear anything for a couple of minutes, so I shut my back door, lock it, and turn off the light. As I am currently writing this, I hear it again and open my door and turn the light back on. Just a minute ago, it sounded like people talking in the distance. I want to finish writing this before I listen again, so I need you guys' honest, genuine opinion. What could this be? Is it a fox? Is it a skinwalker? Or is it something else? It's currently 12:27, and I still hear the screeches. I have recently learned what skinwalkers are, and it completely made sense of an event that happened to me as a child that I had previously completely blocked out of my brain. I don't believe I was targeted in this scenario, but I do know that this absolutely happened. I was not dreaming, etc. I was about 11 years old, visiting my mom's extended family in California with my parents and siblings. I had been there before, and I always slept alone on an air mattress in the living room/sunroom, which had a greenhouse-like glass-paned wall to the front of the house, facing the street. My air mattress was tucked behind a couch, so it's not like anyone could look inside and see me. The house was also about 75 to 100 feet back from the road, with a large gate in the front, so I didn't feel exposed at all in that front room. It was a usual summer evening, and everyone settled into bed. I remember that I used to like to stay up late playing games on my Nintendo DS or iPod, especially while on vacation. I had been on my iPod, getting a little sleepy, when I started to hear strange rustling noises coming from outside. I sat up and peered outside, but couldn't see anything out of the ordinary. The road outside was dimly lit by a streetlight, so any animals I would have seen. I figured it was probably an animal in a bush somewhere, so I put my iPod down and tried to go to sleep. Though my eyes were still pinned to the window out of curiosity. A few quiet minutes pass, and I convince myself that it was nothing. The minute I laid back down, something across the street caught my eye, and I darted back up. Completely silent, I saw what appeared to be two coyote-like figures, only they were mainly walking on their hind legs, which looked much bigger than their front ones. They appeared to be 6 or 7 feet tall. There was absolutely no noise at all. I could not believe what I was seeing. One of them turned to look towards me, so I ducked my head down behind the couch. After a few moments, I slowly peeked again. They continued walking in the same direction until I couldn't see them anymore. So I finally went to bed. At the time, I don't think I was super freaked out. I figured it must have been some sort of animal. I never asked anyone about it though, and only as an adult did I realize that there is no such animals like the ones that I saw. I know coyotes exist and are abundant in California, but they don't walk on their hind legs, and they're certainly not 7 feet tall. I am now convinced that I saw 2 skinwalkers that night. This happened to my brother and I during August of 2018, and I've been trying to find the right place to share it because it's the only unexplained experience I've really had and I wanted to share. I was moving across the country from East Coast to West Coast and decided to bring my brother with me for the journey so I wouldn't be alone. He was pretty excited, and for one of our stops we planned on staying near Phoenix since he had lived there previously and wanted to see old friends. We had a late start on the day. We were supposed to arrive in Arizona, but due to some unexpected bad weather in Oklahoma, we didn't cross the border between Arizona and New Mexico until around 10 p.m. The majority of the day's drive had been uneventful, but when we crossed into Arizona, we began seeing road signs about an escaped convict. We laughed and joked about it, and then we got to talking about how eerie Arizona really is. I made a comment about understanding how someone would think they could see something crazy out in the middle of nowhere. And then my brother jokingly said, "As long as we don't mention skinwalkers, we'll be fine." When I asked what he meant by that, my brother proceeded to tell me how a friend of his he'd met in Phoenix was very superstitious and told him and his other friends not to even mention skinwalkers when someone had brought it up in conversation with him once. I don't think we said much more on the topic after that and switched to talking about less spooky topics. We were somewhere on Interstate 40 and seeing signs for Petrified Forest National Park, and our phone signal was getting patchy because we were out in the middle of nowhere. Navigation wasn't working great due to the poor signal, and Spotify was just getting choppy enough. We just had to turn it off. I think I may have spotted it first. Something ran over the guardrail in front of us, and I had to hit the brakes. At first glance, I thought it was a deer because it had a long neck and thin legs, but its body was also long and cat-like. It had what looked like a cougar tail, and it had almost like a wolfish head with short ears. Its limbs were pretty long, and the way it moved was really unnatural. We screamed as it slowed down enough to give us a look, and then it disappeared over the guardrail on the opposite side of the road and disappeared into the desert. We screamed and then started laughing hysterically as we tried to piece together what we had just seen. We stammered for a few minutes trying to figure out if it was... And then Spotify suddenly kicked back on. To this day, I can't explain what we saw. A deformed cougar with mange is the best way I can describe it. But the experience was incredibly surreal and still gives me chills. So the next 2 encounters are actually comments that 2 Reddit users left on a post about your scariest Skinwalker story. Here's the first one. My grandparents lived in South Texas, about an hour away from the Mexico border. Their house was right by a large canyon. When they passed away in the early 2000s, my cousins were cleaning out their house so they could start renovating it. My cousins pulled up to the driveway when they saw the door was open. When they got to the door, they heard something rummaging inside. One cousin went inside to see what it was, and the other was too scared, so he stayed outside. The cousin that went inside said he entered the kitchen, then the living room. But when he turned the hallway, he saw a huge wolf digging through boxes. As soon as he looked at the wolf, it saw him and stood on its hind legs. He said the wolf had big red eyes and was showing its teeth. After a couple of seconds, the wolf got back on all four legs and ran past him to go outside. My cousin that was outside said he saw the wolf run out the door and into the canyon. He ran up close to the edge to see where it went, when the wolf looked back and, in what he described as, quote, showed its teeth but looked like it was giving me a smile, end quote. After that day, it, nor any other animal, has even shown itself at that property. As a child, I always found that canyon creepy, and I haven't been there in decades. Always wondered what the thing was looking for, since it sure as hell wasn't food. I haven't heard any stories, but I had an experience with one, I think. I'm not sure if it was actually one, but I was 100% sure it was. My sister was outside near the back of our grandparents' house. We were farther away, but we got closer because we got a weird feeling after a while. Eventually, we heard a gross sound. I can't really remember what it sounded like, but from my memory, it sounded like a dog mixed with a human yelling. It doesn't really make sense, but that's the best way I can describe it. So my sister and I ran inside and told our grandparents. My grandfather went outside to see if he could see anything, but he saw nothing. Eventually, I had to go to my house to get something. So my sister stayed, and I ran to my house and got it. I went back outside, and when I was about halfway there, I heard my sister saying my name from the back of my grandparents' house. So I ran in the house, and my sister wasn't near a window or a door, so even if she did say my name, I wouldn't be able to hear it. I asked her after, and she said she didn't say my name at all. Sorry that this is long. I just had to tell someone because everyone I mentioned it to never believed me. But I genuinely think it was a skinwalker. Thank you so much for listening. If you really enjoyed this video and content like this, please consider subscribing, leaving a like, and a comment. It really helps. I want to give a big thank you to all the Reddit users that allowed me to narrate their comments and their stories and encounters here on my channel in this video. I will leave all of their links to their comments and their posts in the description box below. You can find me on Reddit, user Night Owl 1015, and if you want to submit anything to me, like stories or your personal encounters that you want me to narrate, my email is midnight.succubus.vibes@gmail.com. Unfortunately, I am not active really on social media, so I haven't started any of those pages yet for my channel. But yeah, you can find me on Reddit for sure. And my upload schedule is every Thursday. Unfortunately, this past Thursday, March 16th, just due to the time change, spring break, and my increase in workload at my job, I was not able to upload anything. But do look every Thursday for new uploads from me. But yeah, I really appreciate you listening. Until next time. Oh, and here at my house, it's literally impossible to record in a quiet place. It's almost never quiet here. There's a huge PC behind me that's really loud. I have animals. There's car engines outside. Dishwashers, laundry, all of that. So I do apologize if there is any background sound. I do my best to try to filter that out. But until next time, thanks for listening.